Joined now on the broadcast by the voice of the Saskatoon Blades Les Lazaruk. We'll start off talking about the Blades last season. Disappointing year. He finished towards the bottom of the league. Was there a silver lining in terms of who the Blades got to pick as a result of that finish?
The Blades actually last year was the third straight year they'd missed playoffs in the Western Hockey League, coming off hosting the MasterCard Memorial Cup in 2013. An old team that year, and a lot of draft picks dealt in order to get players necessary to host a Memorial Cup, and that old group all pretty much graduated, left them with a very thin lineup in terms of age, left them with a very thin amount of draft picks, made it such that they were difficult for them to compete. They have, to their credit, tried to rebuild and have actually gone up in victories over the last 3 years. So back in 13-14, they would have won 16 games, then 19 games the next year, and then the year after that would have been 26 games. Yes, they had the third worst record in the Western Hockey League, but there is movement upwards with the franchise to the point now where this year they actually have 7 19-year-olds on their roster, and they're hopeful that with a little bit of an older lineup that's been together for a few years, that they can maybe make a run at being in the playoffs for the first time in 4 seasons and go from there. As far as what they brought them for draft picks, brought them the second overall pick because they ended up making a deal just before the Bantam draft with the Vancouver Giants. They basically flipped picks, and there were a couple of other draft picks that were thrown into the mix, but they picked up Kirby Dach, who is a 15-year-old centerman from Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta. Actually, he was their leading scorer during the preseason this year. They would love to have had the ability to keep him as an exceptional player, but we don't have exceptional player status in the Western Hockey League. But Kirby Dach looked very good during the preseason. The hope is that he will join the team full-time once his midget team in Fort Saskatchewan, which by all accounts isn't all that terribly good, ends their season by not making the Alberta Major Midget playoffs, and that would be sometime in late February. The other thing that it got them early was a 7th pick overall in the import draft, which they used to pick up 17-year-old Mark Rubinchik, a Russian who has already gotten off to a quick start this year with a trio of assists in his first 6 games.
Just to clarify for people listening, what Les is talking about regarding the exceptional players is they actually draft players as 15-year-olds in the WHL, and then they have to wait a year to come in. But as Les pointed out, they can come in as soon as their club team's eliminated, so you might get a little bit of a boost. Looking at the roster, Libor Hayek, a draft pick of the Tampa Bay Lightning second round. Tell us about him, his contributions to the Blades, and how he projects going forward as a pro.
His contribution has been immense right away. Last year, as a first-year 17-year-old, was a feeling out process for him about what the North American game was all about. He ended up with 3 goals and 25 points, 22 assists. And I thought he had himself a pretty good year for a 17-year-old that was just learning about what the rigors of the Western Hockey League are like. He's a very good skater. He's an exceptional talent in terms of seeing the ice and knowing what exactly is going on and how he has to go about making sure that he is able to defend against it. He is a very good defender. He has become the Blades' number 1 defenseman and shutdown defender. And in only 4 games played, he already has 6 assists. This is a big start for him. He's throwing some offense together in with that shutdown defensive game, and it's making him an all-around defenseman and a leader. He's got an A on his jersey in just his second year, and a kid who, from the Czech Republic, doesn't speak the best English, but by example, he has proven to be a very valuable contributor.
Looking at the WHL, interesting situation where Saskatchewan, not a huge province, about the same size as us here in Nova Scotia, but you have 5 teams in the WHL. How does that work out for rivalries? Who would be the Blades' biggest rivals?
Blades' biggest rival would be the Prince Albert Raiders, who are about an hour and 10 minutes to the north on Highway 11. Regina and Moose Jaw would be a rivalry then. They're about 45 minutes apart along the Trans-Canada Highway. And really, there's pretty good rivalries amongst all 5 teams. With Current, we have more of a rivalry, some might say, with Medicine Hat, which is 2 hours down the road into Alberta. Depending on the situation, depending on the season, the Blades have had bigger rivalries with Regina in the past because they're more competitive than PA was, and PA might have had that with Moose Jaw one season. In fact, PA and Moose Jaw last year played in the first round of the playoffs, and so as a result, I think they might have built up a little something last year. But for the most part, the 5 teams really do have a dislike for one another. Let's put it that way.
Some great insight here, Les, so we thank you for telling us all about the Blades and everything in the WHL, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Patrick. Same to you, and wish you all the best out in the Quebec Major Junior League, and hopefully your travels are safe and the calls are fun.
That's Les Lazaruk, play-by-play man of Saskatoon Blades. You're listening to McDonald Auto Group, Screaming Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.